Maplewood Elementary stood silent. It loomed over the small New England town like a skeletal finger pointing at the sky. Its windows were dark, lifeless eyes staring out at the world. The paint peeled off the weathered wood siding like sunburnt skin. Whispers followed the old school. Stories of strange noises and unexplained events circulated among the townsfolk. No one dared to go near the abandoned building. Kids told tales of a ghostly girl who roamed the halls. They said she was searching for a playmate. The adults dismissed it as childish fantasy. But the children knew better. They felt the chill in the air whenever they passed by the school. The air always seemed colder there, heavy with an unseen presence. The old schoolhouse had been abandoned for years. Now only silence echoed within its crumbling walls. A group of teenagers, fueled by youthful bravado, stood across the street from Maplewood Elementary. Their leader, Jake, a tall boy with a mischievous glint in his eyes, pointed towards the dilapidated building. "Tonight," he declared, "we explore Maplewood." His friends exchanged nervous glances. They had heard the stories, but none of them wanted to appear scared. Sarah, the most sensible of the group, voiced her concerns. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The stories, they're creepy." Jake smirked, undeterred. "Don't be such a scaredy cat, Sarah," he taunted. "It's just an old building. What's the worst that could happen?" Mike, eager to impress Jake, chimed in, "Yeah, Sarah, don't be a chicken." Emily, the quietest of the group, remained silent. She nervously clutched a small flashlight in her hand. The dare had been issued. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing the dark interior of Maplewood Elementary. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that filtered through the grimy windows. The air inside was heavy and stale, thick with the scent of decay. The group stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The beams of light danced across the peeling wallpaper and the cracked floorboards. A sudden gust of icy air swept through the hallway, causing Sarah to shiver. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, her breath catching in her throat. Jake, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as a draft, but the others felt it too. A sudden drop in temperature, a chilling presence that seemed to cling to them. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet as they ventured deeper into the school. Each step echoed through the empty halls, amplifying the silence. A soft giggle echoed from the end of the hallway. The group froze, their flashlights trained on the darkness. They stumbled upon a classroom, its door slightly ajar. Inside, a single desk sat in the center of the room. A thick layer of dust covered everything. On the desk lay a small, leather-bound diary. Sarah picked it up, gently brushing the dust off the cover. The name Emily Carter was embossed on the front in faded gold lettering. They had heard stories about Emily Carter, the girl who died at the school under mysterious circumstances. Sarah opened the diary and began to read aloud. The entries chronicled Emily's loneliness and her longing for a friend. She wrote about the other children, how they teased her and called her names. Her words painted a picture of a lonely, isolated child, desperate for companionship. The handwriting in the diary was small and neat, each letter carefully formed. The ink was faded, but the words were still legible. The final entry in the diary was dated the day of Emily's death. It was a short, chilling message. "I'll find someone to play with, someone." A shadow flickered across the wall, drawing their attention. It danced and swirled, taking on a vaguely human shape. It seemed to stretch and grow, filling the room with an ominous presence. The temperature plummeted and a chilling breeze swept through the classroom. The teenagers huddled together, their flashlights trained on the shadow. Their breath caught in their throats. The shadow solidified, taking on the distinct form of a young girl. She stood in the corner of the room, her eyes fixed on them. Her pale face seemed to glow in the darkness. Her long dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, framing her ethereal features. She wore a faded white dress, the same dress described in Emily's diary. "Want to play?" A whisper echoed through the room. The voice was soft and childlike, yet it carried an unsettling edge. The teenagers stared at the apparition, their bodies frozen in fear. Sarah clutched the diary tightly in her hand, her knuckles white. The ghostly figure of Emily glided towards them, her movements slow and deliberate. Panic set in. Jake, his bravado completely gone, yelled, "Run!" The teenagers scrambled out of the classroom, their flashlights bouncing wildly in their hands. They ran down the hallway, their footsteps echoing through the empty school. The sound of Emily's laughter pursued them, echoing through the halls, growing louder with each step. They tripped over debris, their hearts pounding in their chests. The darkness seemed to cling to them, hindering their escape. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, twisting and turning, disorienting them. They could hear Emily's footsteps close behind them, her laughter growing closer, more menacing. The floorboards creaked and groaned beneath their weight as if the school itself was trying to hold them back. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The scent of decay intensified, filling their nostrils, choking them. They stumbled and fell, scrambling to their feet, driven by pure terror. They reached the main entrance, the heavy wooden door looming before them like a gateway to freedom. Jake fumbled with the lock, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Finally, the door swung open and they tumbled out into the cool night air. They didn't stop running until they reached the street, their lungs burning, their legs aching. They looked back at the school, its dark windows staring back at them like empty sockets. The swing set on the playground creaked rhythmically, back and forth, back and forth. They stood there, catching their breath, trying to comprehend what they had just experienced. The silence of the night was broken only by their ragged breathing and the creaking of the swing set. It was as if Emily was still there, watching them, waiting. Sarah clutched the diary to her chest, her fingers tracing the embossed letters of Emily's name. She couldn't shake the image of the ghostly girl, her pale face, her dark eyes. She felt a strange mix of fear and pity for Emily, a lonely spirit trapped within the walls of the abandoned school. As they turned to leave, a faint light flickered in one of the upstairs windows. It was a soft, warm glow emanating from the classroom where they had found the diary. They stopped, staring at the light, a sense of unease washing over them. Had they left a flashlight on? They distinctly remembered turning them all off. The light grew brighter, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, beckoning them back towards the school. They exchanged nervous glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew they should leave, but something drew them back towards the light. The light seemed to grow warmer, more inviting. It was as if Emily was trying to communicate with them, to draw them back into her world. They cautiously entered the school, their steps slow and deliberate. The hallway was eerily silent, the air heavy with anticipation. They made their way to the classroom, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The light in the window had vanished. The room was dark and silent, just as they had left it. Sarah walked over to the desk where they had found the diary. It lay open, a new entry scrawled across the page. The handwriting was the same as before, small and neat, but the ink was fresh, still wet. She picked up the diary, her hand trembling, and began to read aloud. "I found them," the entry began. "They came to play with me. We had so much fun. We played hide and seek. They hid, and I sought. I found them all." A child's giggle echoed from the hallway, followed by the soft patter of footsteps. The teenagers exchanged terrified glances. They knew it was Emily coming back for them. They turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, the lock clicking into place. They were trapped. Come out, wherever you are." Emily's voice echoed through the room, her tone playful yet menacing. "I'm ready to play again." Her laughter echoed through the halls, bouncing off the walls, growing closer with each passing moment. The teenagers huddled together, their flashlights trained on the door, their hearts pounding in their chests. The last sound they heard was the soft creak of the swing set on the playground, swinging back and forth, as if Emily was already waiting for them, ready to begin their eternal game of hide and seek.